Welcome, everyone, to the Pick Six podcast, where we discuss the biggest stories in college football. I am your host, Chris Chang, and as a reminder, please send us your story ideas to the pick6guys@gmail.com. We want to know, what do you guys want to see and hear us talk about? Email in the description below. So, today, I wanted to do a kind of a review of sorts. I wanted to sit down and get some of the casuals up to speed on the program, or maybe you're a fan of a team that is playing Miami and you're not too familiar with the program. And, I just wanted to give you an idea of kind of what to expect. So today we're going to call this segment the Canes Catch Up, right? And we're going to do a quick recap of last year, talk about some key personnel changes I think that are important, and give you some insight in what to expect from the Hurricanes in the 2025 season. So without hesitation, let's jump into a quick recap of last year. What an incredible ride it was. Last year was magical. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you the last time I was as hyped, so hyped, I started this friggin' podcast. That's how excited I was. I got off my butt and finally started a podcast. That's how exciting last year was. So it's one of those things where you only get this every couple of seasons, and we'll get into the full extent of the season, but it was literally magical. You had Cam Ward coming in, and he was expected to do great things, and he did. And for the first time in 7 years, the Hurricanes got double-digit wins, went going 10-2, thanks to in great part to the legendary Cam Ward. He is probably the greatest quarterback that UM has ever seen, and we were a university that was once called Quarterback U. I know, not so much lately, but hopefully we can get back to those ways. It's just the second time in 20 years that UM has gotten 10 wins. There were blowout dominant wins against in-state rivals, Florida and Florida State. Amazing games to watch. I watched the UF game here at home, got to see the FSU game in person. Both were incredible. There were some historic and heart-stopping comebacks to Virginia Tech, Cal, and Louisville. Those were some crazy games to watch. Now, despite breaking school and NCAA records on the offensive side of the ball, the squad faltered and dropped 2 late season losses, missing the ACC title game and the college football playoffs. Now, while 10-2 was a much-needed improvement than 2023's 7-6 record, expectations were super high and sadly unmet. And by many fans like myself, we thought last year was an objective failure. I mean, I genuinely thought that UM would easily go at least 11-1, like I think we're going this year. Um, I thought we would once if we got past UF. I really thought we could win every game. I mean, to me, there wasn't a game on that schedule last year that I thought we would probably lose, and I think a lot of people probably thought the same. And so last year, sadly, it was a bit of a failure, and we didn't make the ACC championship game. And I think we would have given SMU a run for its money, if not beaten them. We wouldn't have played Clemson because Clemson sneaked in because we lost to Syracuse. And because of that, we missed the college football playoffs, which I also think we if we had a decent, not even a really good, a decent defense, I think we could have made a good run. But like every other season, you're going to have players move on, and several Miami Hurricanes left the program after the 2024 season, some for the NFL draft and some for the portal. Probably for the better. Some notable departures include number 1 NFL draft pick Cam Ward, as we've been mentioning, key wide receivers Xavier Restrepo, Jacoby George, Sam Brown, and Isaiah Horton, who combined for a significant portion of the team's receiving yards. Other key players included Damian Martinez and Elijah Arroyo, who declared for the NFL draft. In total, UM saw about 21 players who entered the transfer portal, with a large portion coming from the defensive side of the ball. Yeah, I think that's kind of what we expected. Last year was that, once in a lifetime opportunity where we had a lot of veteran players. We had some older guys transfer in, and we really, like I said, should have made a run for it. But sadly, some of them were one and dones, and the seniors obviously graduating and going to the NFL. And then you couple that with a defense that was clearly subpar, clearly not up to what task for what we needed to do to achieve the mission, which was to get to the ACC championship game and win. And so we saw a lot of those guys leave. A lot of them left because Lance Guidry was fired. Those were a lot of his guys that he brought in. And I think that the players on the defensive side of the ball also saw that UM was probably looking to add some players and to bulk up their reserves and backups. So they probably had to exit. So we had some losses, quite a few. Some people who have jumped in our comments have made note of that we've lost quite a few players. But, you know, while the portal may taketh, it can also giveth. And this was the most important facet to the upcoming season that I think is coming up. Coming up short and losing key players to the portal and the draft meant Mario had to make some major moves in the offseason, and major moves he did. We lost a generational quarterback in Cam Ward, but we were able to steal Carson Beck from the University of Georgia or the NFL, whichever way you want to look at it. Another quarterback who was planning on going to the NFL, decided to stay another year, come to Miami. Hopefully we can repeat that same magic that we had with Cam Ward with Carson Beck. A little bit more on him in a minute. Also on the offensive side of the ball, we added CJ Daniels from LSU, Tony Johnson from Cincinnati, and Keelan Marion from BYU to fill out that depleted wide receiver room. These are some vets that we are hopefully going to bring in that will either play a substantial role in the upcoming season or will at least bolster the ranks for our young guys that are coming in. We also had Shamar Brown, who will be helping our running back stable and possibly be the final piece in a three-headed monster in our running backs room. We had Alex Bowman, who could be a much-needed replacement for Elijah Arroyo. We know Lofton's going to take Arroyo's starter position, but Bowman could be a supplemental help and could create some depth in the tight end room that was kind of depleted due to the transfer portal and the NFL draft. Moving over to the defensive side, we see the biggest overhaul, like I was mentioning earlier, and one that was desperately needed. Mario and co searched far and wide to bring in some of the nation's best portal prospects. On the D-line, we got highly sought-after lineman David Blade Jr. from Louisiana Tech. A ton of SEC schools were jockeying for this guy, and he was actually when SEC reporters were polled and coaches were polled at the SEC Media Days, David Blade's name came up as probably one of the most sought-after players in this year's transfer portal. So big things expected of this guy. The area of most need, that was probably our secondary. And we went out and got Wisconsin stud Xavier Lucas, who you've probably heard a lot about him this offseason and on our channel. And we also got Zachariah Poyser from Jacksonville State, who is also apparently going to be a much needed set of hands. Helping them out over the top will be Tennessee standout Jacoby Thomas, who is considered a hard-hitting safety that will give wide receivers caution when crossing across the middle or catching those deep balls. That was kind of awkward. Ignore that. I also like the addition of Rutgers linebacker Mohamed Toure to help bring in some veteran leadership to our linebacker room. I think that's something that we're going to desperately need, and hearing some pretty good things about him. So those were our key additions. Let's move over to some players I think you need to keep an eye out for. Players to watch. Now, we all expect Carson Beck to produce, and we know Mark Fletcher and Jordan Lyle are proven and trustworthy ball runners, okay? Ruben Bain on the defensive side will be a menace and be chasing down quarterbacks, but I want to give you some players who we haven't seen too much of and that I think will make a name for themselves in this 2025 season. While I'm comfortable with the transfer additions to the wide receiver room, keep an eye out for homegrown talents Malachi Toney, JoJo Trader, and Joshua Moore. These guys, while young and unproven, I think are going to be stars this year. Maybe not all three, maybe all three. I don't know. But I think Moore, who is looking better and better each day at practice and through the two scrimmages we have, gives you that big body receiver that you lost in Isaiah Horton. I mean, they almost have the exact same measurements. And I think Moore, who's getting better, will make that exit of Horton a lot less brutal moving forward into this year. And Toney and Trader are both explosive talents who may lack size, they're a little short, but make up for it in speed and dynamic playability. These guys are fast and, the magic word of the year, twitchy. They are really, really good. And I'm telling you, from national guys to local guys who have followed the program for years to just newer guys, everyone is talking about Malachi Toney. I mean, they literally call Malachi Toney Baby Jesus. Baby Jesus is his nickname. And some are saying he's going to be this year's Ryan Williams. That's the young quarterback from Alabama that had a phenomenal year and that was literally tearing up secondaries at the beginning of last year. Now, keep an eye out. I'm telling you, keep an eye out and remember the name Malachi Toney. I'm telling you, he will be a threat. Some younger talent on the defensive side of the ball that I see having a breakout year are Armando Blunt and Marquise Lightfoot. These are two guys who were sought after 2 years ago. Super high recruits. Both, I believe, were 5-star. A lot of people want them. This year, I think we're going to see them take their game to the next level. I think they're ready to step up. There's been a lot of word over this fall camp that they've been consistent in practices and especially in the scrimmage. Both have had like breakout performances this whole entire fall camp. They're both developing, which is really important. What you're hearing a lot about UM's team this year is they're bigger, like noticeably bigger. And two of those guys that are getting bigger and that are putting on some size and getting that speed up are Armando Blunt and Marquise Lightfoot. So I think these guys on the defensive side are going to play a big role. I mentioned earlier, David Blake Jr. This guy is a monster. When you look at this guy, he is huge, huge. He is. I don't know how Louisiana Tech was able to keep him and get him, but I mean, this guy looks like your stereotypical SEC D lineman. He's going to be a beast. I think he was, like I said, highly sought after, big body, older guy. It's his last chance. He's a one and done kind of guy, kind of like Simeon Barrow from last year. And I think he's going to be a disruptor in the trenches. I think he's really going to be, hopefully, again, because we're going to talk about in a few minutes, the D tackle room. I think he'll hopefully be a standout, won't be a bust. I think he's going to prove himself this year and hopefully secure himself a spot in the NFL draft next year. Moving up a little bit higher in the defense, Xavier Lucas and Jacoby Thomas will also be making it hard for QBs to go over the top this year. That's my hope, please, in Jesus' name. We need a good secondary. These two guys' names will be called out a lot, I think, and we should be hopefully see a return to that Miami dominant defense with these two tampering with the air traffic. Tampering, that was probably not the best choice of words when referring to Xavier Lucas. Well, I'm just going to say they're going to disrupt. They're going to shut down the airways, okay, for quarterbacks and wide receivers this year. Moving over, here's some strengths that I think UM has this year going into the 2025 season, right? Our O-line and rushing attack. I think we have, without a doubt, I think Sports Illustrated, 24/7, on 3, and ESPN have all ranked Miami in the top 5 for returning O-lines, and they have 3 key players from last year, and then they added a veteran center from TCU and James Brockermeyer. I think bodies are going to get moved. There's going to be a ton of pancakes. You might as well just call us IHOP. The U should be just called IHOP moving this year. I am also heavy on the wide receiver on the running back room. I think this running back room is literally going to be our saving grace. I don't know if we're going to be the number 1 offense in the country like we were last year, but this running back room is absolutely going to keep us, I think, in the top 20 at a minimum, possibly even top 10 if those big bodies on the O-line can get that push. Because these guys that we've got, I mean, I'm calling this the King Ghidorah room. If you're familiar with Godzilla, that was a 3-headed beast, like a 3-headed dragon. It was a monster. Took Godzilla to like the wire, beat him. Okay, I'm getting too far into. Just understand, we've got 3 massive, sick running backs, okay? These guys are ready to run the rock. Mark Fletcher has gotten shredded. Apparently, this guy looks NFL ready as is. He's shredded, stronger. Jordan, I'm calling him Jordan Too Fast Lyle. This guy, I'm telling you guys, something tells me we're going to see at least half a dozen dynamic breakaway runs from Jordan Lyle this year. I think this guy, I mean, he literally jumped up the depth charts last year. Just a few opportunities, and he took them. He's going to be the number 2, I think, this year. They haven't released the depth chart yet, but my belief, we're going to get Fletcher at the number 1 running back with Lyle coming in at a close second, zooming up and down that field. Trust me, watch out for Jordan Lyle. He is going to be really good. And then we obviously have Marty Brown or Shamar Brown. I think he's going to be really good. The kid from North Dakota State. They say this guy is D1 ready, even though he comes from the FCS, which is like the league for you casuals. That's the league below what these Power 4 and G5 conferences play under. I think he's ready for it. I think he's really going to prove himself. And if he's as good as some people are saying, he might work his way into running back number 2. We'll see. I think it's better to have more. I think we're looking, I would relate, maybe not talent wise, but I'm looking at maybe option wise. This is going to be very similar to that 2001, 2002 teams where you just had like Frank Gore, Willis McGahee. Like you just like you can go 3 deep here, and I think we're 3 deep here, and it's going to be good. Another strength I think for the team this year is going to be QB experience. Just a year ago at this time, Carson Beck was a Heisman hopeful. Was expected to be in New York and a round 1 NFL draft pick of the first. Excuse me. Let me change that. He was expected at this time last year to go number 1 in the NFL draft pick. I mean, he's played 5 seasons at Georgia where he started 2 of them. He went 24 for 3, throwing for nearly 8,000 yards and 58 touchdowns. This guy is really good, and there's been a lot of talk, about him because of his surgery. And despite his surgery in the winter, I'm convinced he will be back to peak form, that 2023 form, with between the protection at O-line and that stable of running backs who will probably be averaging more than 5 yards a carry. I know you think I'm crazy for saying that, but that's literally what we averaged last year. I think a little bit more. I think you give those 2 things, which are 2 things Georgia did not have. I think you're gonna see Carson Beck back to that 2023 form. I mean, there's a lot of myths about Carson Beck out there, about his arm and that surgery. That's all been crushed. I mean, even the national media is acknowledging now that he can sling it. That he even admit he's juiced up. He's ready to go. He was actually throwing it much faster and harder than he thought he was going to be able to during the first week of practice a couple weeks ago. And I think he's the real deal. I think this is not going to be last year's Carson Beck. I don't think he's going to have to play hero ball. I think Dawson's going to set up an offensive scheme for him that's going to make him feel super comfortable. While again, his wide receiver room is young, and he maybe not have the greatest chemistry with them, like a 3rd-year veteran might have, or in his case, a 5th-year veteran. I still think you're bringing some vets in the room and like a CJ Daniels. But you're also going to have some really, really young talent that's going to be ready. And let's not forget really quick that when Cam came over, he had a reputation for turnovers, right? And so there's this other myth that Carson's going to turn the ball over. He throws a ton of interceptions because last year he was a bit turnover heavy. But I think that's also because he had to force the ball, and he knew his wide receivers, who led the nation in drops, weren't that great. But if we remember, when we go back to this time last year, people were saying very similar things about Cam Ward. And look how that turned out, right? It's a little bit different. I think when you're given a good O-line and you've got some talent around you, it changes things. And let's also remember, he put up better numbers last year in his bad year than Drew Aller, John Mateer, and Sam Levitt, and a host of others, okay? So this guy, even though he's not getting the recognition I think he deserves, I think he's going to be a top 10 quarterback, if not a top 5 quarterback, if all pans out in the NCAA this year. I think in college football, I think he will literally prove that he is a day 1 NFL draft pick, if not a top 5 draft pick. Another source of strength, I think, coming into this is the revamped defense. We know offense isn't the issue, and I don't want to say that like, hey, like, our defense is so much better, but you're hearing it. Again, going back to this time last year, there was a ton of talk and I would say concern, which we'll get into in a moment, about our secondary. You're not hearing that this year. If anything, you're hearing about how the talent looks stronger and bigger and better. You're hearing about how people are getting to the ball a lot faster. There's more tenacity in practice. You're hearing about guys getting more frustrated with each other, which means they're getting more competitive and they're getting into it. They literally took, I think, the first couple days of practice, they just did, or the first day of practice, they did nothing but just work on communication issues, which was our issue last year, the communication. So I think this year, coupled with the new defensive coordinator, with this talent, you're going to see a revamped defense that's going to, I think, flip the script on what we did last year. And again, while we may not have the number 1 offense, the defense is going to bring it up. It's going to raise the program, I think, 100%. Now, moving on. I was skeptical at calling this, weaknesses. I don't want to call these weaknesses because I don't genuinely think like last year with our secondary, there's going to be a weakness to this team. Now, do I think there's going to be some concerns? Sure. And that's why I call this. I think that there's more uncertainty than there are concerns, if that makes any sense. But if it's anything like that last year, I think we will quickly know by week 4 if these are these concerns are actually weaknesses, and we're going to have to do the best we can. So let's just do this and call a spade. Our wide receiver room. We lost all 6 top players in reception yards, and there's no way to dance around this, okay? It's hard to say you're not worried or concerned about a facet of the team that will see 0 returning impact players. Literally, you go through the top 6 producers on the offense, all of them gone. All of them. It's a concern. But, like I said, we had some key additions. We brought some veterans in. And then we have this homegrown young talent that we've recruited over the last 2 years that I think are ready to step up, that are ready to play. So that's why I'm saying it's not a weakness. Area of concern, area of questioning that we have to look at, right? Next, the D tackle room. Where do I go with this? How do I put this? I put this on here only for the pure fact that this is a room, depending on how the season goes, could be either worrisome or it could be a great sigh of relief, and we'll quickly know. And I think the main reason why is because depth is the issue. It's the question, and we're going to have to wait and see. I think I talked about David Blay. I think he's going to be a great guy. We have Armando Blunt, Marquise Lightfoot. You know, you're going to have Ruben Bain on the edge. It's going to be good, but we're going to have to wait and see. And my hope is with this new defensive scheme, everyone's saying it's just get to the ball, no craziness, no stunts, none of this other crap we're going to have to worry about. We're just going to take our best guys and run them as fast as we can to the quarterback. And we're going to have to see. One of those guys is Justin Scott. He was highly recruited and it has something to prove this year. And like I said, while David Blay is highly sought after, we had a few busts last year, guys that we thought we were bringing in on the defensive line that were veterans, and they did not pan out. And so we desperately need a presence at this position. And so we're going to have to wait and see. And then obviously one of the last things we'll get into is the secondary. There's how do you quantify a team that literally is replacing all but one starter? Right? Other than OJ Federic, we have completely replaced our defensive secondary. While I included them in the strengths of this team, the fact that 80% of the people who are going to be starting this team are transferred and never played together, that's a major area of concern. That's something that I think, again, there's going to be no lukewarm. It's either going to be hot and we're going to look incredible, or you're going to quickly find out that when you have a bunch of guys who have never played before, it's a recipe for disaster, right? And so I think the defensive secondary is going to be a bit of a question. I think, though, with all of this, I think with this portion that I'm concerned about, I think we're going to figure all this out by week 4, at the end of week 4, after we play Florida, because we'll be facing some of our stiffest competition and other games, and we'll be able to gauge. And roughly about then, it was more probably around game 6 that we kind of figured out who our team really was. I think this year will be a little bit different. I think we'll know by game 4. Lastly, my last part of concern, and this wasn't until recently and until the second scrimmage and this week's practices, and then so I added it last minute. Special teams, specifically the kicking team. We had a spectacular 5-year run of elite kickers with the Borregales brothers. They were basically the greatest kickers we probably ever had. Their talent was insane. And when they were on the field, they were automatic. I mean, I never questioned either Jose or Andres when they came out. I just knew. It was like, I didn't even need to watch. I was just like, okay, we've got this. Field goal, I didn't matter. 20, 30, 40, 50 yards, I would take it. I'd be like, yo, you guys got this. And not so much this year. If reports are true, transfers Bert Auburn and Carter Davis are far from being Jose and Andres Borregales. If you remember, Bert Auburn, who was transferring from Texas last year, was a bit of a shankopotamus in the playoffs, missing several kicks, crucial ones that kept them out of the championship. And so, I'm not feeling hot. Hopefully we don't have to resort to a lot of field goals, but kicking may not seem like the sexiest thing to talk about preseason, but trust me, if we find ourselves in some close games and you see some of those kicks sail left or right, you're going to quickly remember this warning that I'm talking about. So the overall outlook. How do I feel? Well, if you watched our prediction last week, despite those concerns that I have, I feel really good about this team. I think we're a solid team. That's what I'm using as the main descriptor. I think, and by solid, I mean we've got depth and we've got talent. At this time last year, there were serious doubts, not questions, which is what we've got this year, but doubts about the defensive secondary. Everyone that I'm following is saying our secondary is worlds better, exponentially better. And the difference between last year and this year, like I was saying, there were doubts. I'm not hearing that about many positions this year. There's, like I said, we brought those areas of concern about the wide receivers first off. But again, that's young talent, right? They say the big thing I'm hearing from a lot of pundits and people who are questioning the Miami program is, they haven't named, or they don't have these star wide receivers or key wide receivers. And they say if you don't have one wide receiver, if you have a ton of wide receivers, you have none. And I got to disagree with that. Ryan Williams, 17-year-old who played for Alabama last year, their number one wide receiver. They're probably will be their number one wide receiver this year. Ridiculous talent. You have Jeremiah Smith, who basically led Ohio State to the championship. That guy was almost the reason they won the national championship, which still breaks my heart to this day. I still am not over it. I'm never going to be over it. Jeremiah Smith, if you're watching or listening to this, please come back to the U. Please come back. Or not come back, but just please come to the U. We would love to have you here. Bring a ship home here. um, but yeah, I think our while wide receiver was young, I think inside Heck and outside Heck, all the talent is there. And it's better. I think legit, I think the talent is going to be as good, if not better, and deeper. I think it's going to be, whereas last year we were only starting maybe 3 or 4 guys and trusting 3 or 4 guys. I think this is going to be by committee, and you're not going to see that steep drop off going with the backups as you did last year. And I think, like I said, I keep pushing this. I think by the end of week 4, we're really going to know what this team is capable of. It's either going to be ACC championship, college football playoffs, or bust. And if you saw my season prediction last week, I think great things are going to happen. I think there are also some questions about the program I kind of want to address that the media is kind of talking about. So it's, why does Miami have to get to Charlotte? Well, I think that's very simple. You've had, because like people are saying, oh, well, Miami doesn't necessarily need to win the ACC or get to Charlotte to have a successful season. And I think that's not true at all. I think this is a make or break year. I mean, obviously we're not going to fire Mario this year. I think that the buyout is too high, but in terms of recruiting, in terms of the trajectory of the program, Miami not only needs to get to Charlotte, they need to win. They need to win the ACC. We've been in the ACC for 23 years, I think, at this point, and we've never won. And that, however you choose to view it, I think when you go into a recruit's home, that is going to be a source of contention. And then not only that, Mario's in his 3rd year. These are all his guys for the most part, or guys that he has selected by hand to bring in. And most people will tell you, hey, if by the 3rd year you haven't gotten your ship where it needs to be, it's probably not going to get there. Or it's going to take some serious work in year 4 to really take it to the next level. So that's why I think it's really important for us to not only get to Charlotte, but I think to win. How important is this season for Mario? Can he get over the hump? Again, like I just detailed, I think it's almost an existential crisis for him. I know it sounds like I'm being super dramatic when I say this, but think about it this way, right? Let's say Miami, I forgot who said Miami could have a 6-6 season or even worse, a 5-7. But let's just say we go back to my worst case scenario, 8-4. You go to 8-4, right? While better than 2 years ago, again, I highlighted in the last video, that means you're not doing as well as SMU, who was playing in the G5 2 years ago. You're not doing better than a lot of teams that were basically irrelevant, because if Miami's not in it, that you've got teams like Louisville, who is very portal heavy, right? Okay, well, how can they go to the portal and have a lower portal class and still have more success than us? Clemson's going to be Clemson. Florida State, again, I don't think they're going to be relevant, so you don't have them. But you look at other teams that are dark horses. Georgia Tech. I mean this with all due respect, but Georgia Tech 3-4 years ago was irrelevant. No one had them winning the ACC. No one thought they were competitive. And you look at Hayes King and what he's been doing the past couple of years. He's coming back. You look at the Georgia Tech program that's quickly on the rise. What does Mario have? He's got to get over this hump, specifically, like we talked about last season, the end of the season hump, finishing strong. So I think there is a lot on the line for this team, but I think we can achieve it. And I think we can attain and achieve all of our goals. And I think it's very possible. I think it's going to be a solid season. I think teams who think Miami is overhyped and think Miami is not a championship contender, I think they're going to quickly find out. I could be wrong. Again, like I said, week 4, we'll do our usual after week 6. We'll do our midseason report card and we'll see where the team's at. I have high hopes like I did last year. I changed that. I am as confident as I was last year, just in a different way, because I think it's a different team. And I think if what everyone's saying, this is Mario's best team, I think this will be the year that we can get to the ACC championship and that we can win it and we can find ourselves in the college football playoffs. Well, everyone, we have got another one in the books. Thank you all for watching. Guys, we have got 9 days, 8 days, single-digit days, whenever you're watching this, left till the college football season kicks off. We've got Farmageddon coming up. We've got Labor Day weekend coming up. I am pumped. If you're watching this later in the season, are you worried about Miami? What are your thoughts on it? Until next time, guys, be good, win the weekend, and as always, go Canes.